Mari's Roller Brush is a new painting mode that allows artists to paint a tileable image that follows the curves and direction of a brushstroke. This new feature provides artists with more tools with their creative flexibility in mind. It enables you to create anything from seams on a character's clothing to ornaments, laces, chains, screws, wounds, etc. It's efficient and saves time. Without the tool, you would have to manually line up each tileable texture one by one to mimic a brushstroke. Here's a basic overview on how to use the Roller Brush tool. If you look on the left hand side of your screen, you'll see there's a toolbar menu. Click and hold the brush icon to bring up a sub-menu. In this menu, there are a few different options. We're going to choose Roller. Once done, let's create a paint node. You can do this by pressing P on your keyboard. Let's fill it with black and make sure we check the scalar checkbox, as we'll be using the paint node as a mask. It's also important that the foreground is white, as we're going to be painting on black. If you press any number on your keyboard after selecting a node, you'll be able to see the node that you're looking at. Having selected the Roller Brush tool, let's look at its properties. The Tool Properties menu will enable you to look at all the different options for your tool. Click on the pin icon to prevent it from disappearing. If you scroll down to Bitmap, you'll see there's a path box. If you click on the icon next to it, you can load an image for the Roller Brush tool. In most instances, you'll be using a tileable texture for the Roller Brush. A tileable texture is an image that can be placed next to itself in either horizontal or vertical orientation to create a seamless chain. But you don't need one. Non-tileable textures do work and can be used, it just has a completely different effect. Tileable is just the best example to explain the benefits of the Roller Brush. Here I have saved a few tileable images. Now that we've loaded one of them, let's go and look at the source. We want it to be an RGB value for us to be able to see it. As our image is in white and black, it doesn't really matter which one it is, so I'm just going to choose red. Also, remember to tick scalar data under bitmap color space as we are painting a mask. Once done, we can start painting. Let's draw a curve. In this case, the texture is pointing in the wrong direction. You can change the direction by scrolling to the roller section, and under repeat direction, you can change it. Let's change it to vertical. Now we're creating a nice seamless line. The only concern is we're experiencing segmentation issues. The curve does not have enough divisions. To fix this, we can go on the segments option under roller to increase the divisions, making the curves smoother. Let's reset our buffer using this button to remove the strokes we've painted, and change in segments to something higher like 40. If you start painting, you can see we're no longer getting segmentation issues. In this example, I'm going to show you how to use the Roller Brush to create a tileable gash or fresh wound texture. Here we have a textured elf. This project is composed of a material shader. We are using the principled BRDF. That is what I'm viewing right now. To view a node, just press any number on your keyboard. We're going to create this wound that I've made here together, using the Roller Brush. To do this, let's create a color node first of all. This will be the color of the wound. I'm just going to double click on the node once I've created it, and then select the color we want. Once done, let's create a merge. You can create it by pressing M on your keyboard. We need to connect it to the diffuse texture, as that's where the skin texture lies, and we want to place the wound on top. If you click on the paint node, you can see the diffuse map that we've imported for the elf. I'll be connecting it over here. This will be the base, and we want to connect the wound color on top. If we look at merge, we can see that the wound color is over the base. What we need to do now is create a mask to limit what's going over. To do this, let's create a paint node by pressing P on your keyboard. This menu will pop up. Let's keep it on its previous settings. Now we can get to the fun part and use the Roller Brush. Here I already have the Roller Brush selected, but normally it should be on the brush mode. If you go on the left hand side of the screen, you have the Tools toolbar. We're going to choose Brush. If you click and hold, you'll see the Roller Brush. Let's click on it. As you can see, the icon is square for now. If you go into Tool Properties and then look through it, you can see that we have the bitmap section, and in there we have a path next to it. We have an icon. This icon will be used to upload your file for the Roller Brush. For the wound, we need a tileable texture for it to work. In this case, I've already created a wound texture and I have now selected it. This is what my wound texture looks like in the image manager. You can also pin your tool's properties so that it doesn't disappear over time. Now that we've already loaded the texture, let's go in Source. We want to change it to an RGB value as we're painting in black and white because it's a mask. Any of these three will do. A mask dictates whether a given layer or node is visible or not. The whitest values determine what's going to be seen and the darkest values are what are not going to be seen. Also, don't forget to tick Scalar Data under Bitmap Color Space as it's a mask. If you click on the paint node and press any number on your keyboard to view it, we will see we've got a black paint node. We need to make sure that the foreground is white here. And now we can paint. As you can see, we have a tileable wound. We can increase the quality of the curves by increasing the segments. This will allow you to have a much smoother curve. I'm going to erase what we've done by clicking on this button, which enables you to get rid of the paint in the buffer. Let's attach our wound mask to the mask input on the merge node. Here we can see the wound that we've already made. Let's deactivate it. Now we're going to draw our own. Let's create a wound on the other side to keep it varied. I have painted the wounds, but we can't see much. That's because our white value isn't strong enough. Instead of redoing the paint, you can add a grade node. If you press tab on your keyboard and type grade, you can attach it to the paint node and then repeat the input into mask. Then, in the node properties, we can increase the gain, which will make the value stronger. Now you can clearly see the wound, but this is too strong. Let's bring it down to 3. We can now add a bump map. This controls the height and depth of a texture, and by doing this we will be able to add volume to the wound. To do this, we can plug our wound mask into a bump map input. If we look at our mask texture, we can see that it's made for a mask, but the bump map is a little different. So as we said before, in the mask map, the white dictates what's going to be visible, and the black dictates what is not going to be visible. On the other hand, for the bump map, what is white is what's going to have height, and what is black is what's going to have depth, and the grey values are what's going to make a surface flat. What we need to do is invert the mask to get something similar to a bump map. As for the wound, we want more depth than height. Let's create an invert node by pressing tab on your keyboard and then typing invert. Let's connect the mask to the input and then plug it into the bump. If we take the input and plug it into our new wound, we can see we are now getting volume. You can adjust the bump map in your shader. In this case, principled BRDF. In the node properties, if you go under bump weight, you can increase it to any value you desire. Here I've gone for quite an extreme value. I think what we had done before was better, so I'm going to reduce it. This concludes the example on how to use a roller brush to create a gash or wound texture.